Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Karin Helmstedt.
Hello there, and a warm welcome to our Euromaxx highlights. And after an action-packed week, this is what our top stories look like. Daring duo, two artistic cyclists take to the streets of the German capital. Scintillating sounds, Nathan Lee combines beatboxing with the flute. And Mean Machines' aggressive designs at the Geneva Motor Show. One way to get through the dreary winter months in Northern Europe is to plan your next vacation. France, Spain and Italy have always been top holiday destinations for Europeans thanks to their great food, milder climates and, of course, the beaches. But now, increasing security concerns and travel restrictions in other parts of the world mean that Europe and its many attractions are more in demand than ever. And we checked out where the travel trends are pointing to for this year.
Idyllic seaside resorts, spectacular displays of nature, vibrant cities, and picturesque landscapes. Just a few of the many exciting travel destinations in Europe. The most popular holiday region is the Mediterranean. When it comes to the annual summer vacation, most tourists still opt for a holiday by the sea. Hamburg tourism expert Ulrich Reinhardt says the trend will continue in 2017.
For many people, it's the ideal holiday. Relaxing on the beach, every now and then a dip in the water to cool off. Most want a contrast to their everyday lives, so the majority will probably continue to holiday on the Mediterranean coast.
He expects the classic travel destinations to get the most bookings, including Spain and the Canary Islands. Then there's Portugal with its diverse geographic features. Or you can sample some Dolce Vita in Italy. Security issues also play a key role when it comes to choosing holiday destinations. So in Turkey, many beaches and hotels are once again likely to remain empty.
Tourists are very aware of the various crises going on in the world. So many are avoiding North Africa and, above all, Turkey. They choose other places because feeling safe is essential. So, not surprisingly, Spain, Italy and France are the top destinations once again this summer.
France has also seen fewer visitors following the terror attacks. But with some 80 million tourists a year, it's still one of Europe's most popular destinations. It's not yet clear what effect Brexit could have on tourism, but the weakness of the pound is at least making holidays in Britain cheaper. And in rural areas like the Cotswolds, it's easy to forget the whole political upheaval. Iceland is also likely to remain popular in 2017. For years now, the island has seen a massive increase in visitor numbers. In the summer months, there are as many tourists in the capital Reykjavik as there are local residents. Even outside the peak season, the number of tourists increased by nearly 50% between 2015 and 2016. Eastern European countries are also gaining in popularity. Slovenia is just one example. Or Croatia, which is particularly popular among German visitors. The Czech Republic has seen one record year after another, and that's unlikely to change in 2017. One thing that makes Eastern Europe particularly attractive is low prices. But how much do Europeans spend on their holiday?
The Germans and other Europeans spend an average of €100 a day on holiday. That's including accommodation and getting there, ice cream for the children, tips for the waiter, or a visit to a museum.
Most trips are carefully planned in advance so that everyone can relax and enjoy their vacation. What part of Europe would you most like to see? Every week, our Euromaxx Extra Tour series takes you to a region or tourist attraction of your choice in Europe. Write in and tell us where you want to go and why. Don't forget your photo. Then we'll take an extra tour on your behalf and show your picture in our program. Write to us at DW Euromaxx, Wolterstrasse 6, 13355 Berlin, Germany. Or send a fax to 49 for Germany, 30 for Berlin, 4646 6505. Or an email to euromax.english@dw.com. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Well, it used to be reserved for the circus, but nowadays doing acrobatics on a bicycle is what you could call a specialist sport. And of course, it's one that requires the balance of a dancer. Well, that's what professional rider David Schnabel and his partner Leah have developed as acrobat cyclists. He's won the title as world champion no fewer than 8 times, and she has chalked up her own share of prizes. So in honor of the upcoming Bicycle Week here in Berlin, we followed the 2 acrobats around on their 2-wheelers to see what they can get up to.
The fine art of bike riding demonstrated by David Schnabel and Leah Scheper. The 2 artistic cyclists are practicing for a performance. They're into bicycle ballet, not bicycle tours or races. Whether in a parking garage, on a theatre stage, or in a sports arena, they give free rein to their ideas and bicycles.
I'm fascinated by pulling out all the stops in artistic cycling, to put everything I've got into it, body and soul.
And you can keep rediscovering yourself and try out new things. It's so cool.
Not only their tricks are unusual, their bikes too were developed specially to meet their needs. Axle pegs on the rear axle to stand on, 1-to-1 ratio drive for a fast start, and fixed gears for riding backwards. This bicycle costs about €1,800.
When I turn the bike back right side up, you can see how the handlebars turn upward, almost like they're the wrong way around. So you can stand on them and perform various tricks. And the seat is also formed that way to provide stability and firmness.
David Schnabel and Leah Scheper's artistic bicycles aren't strictly street legal, but the 2 bike acrobats don't want to restrict their practice to a hall. David visits his sports partner as often as possible in Berlin. Both of them profit from the bicycle boom in Germany and Europe. More and more people want to see their shows. Freestyle cyclists may perform jumps and stunts. These 2 are more into aesthetics than spectacles, but what they do is still dangerous.
We first have to learn to fall before we include a trick in our program, because that's very difficult too.
David Schnabel ended his professional career 4 years ago, but he still has to keep in training to maintain his skills for performances.
A nice side effect of artistic cycling training is that you get so many kinds of exercise. You train your arms, you train your brain to coordinate various components that you have to take into account at the same time, and your legs, your stamina.
It's technique and coordination that makes this sport special.
David Schnabel and Leah Scheper have a mission. They want to make artistic cycling popular again. And not just in performance venues. They're not just bike riders, they're performing artists.
Fantastic stuff. Well, similarly, the flute, as we know it, is an instrument that we would normally associate with orchestras and with classical music. But when British musician Nathan Lee got his hands on one, well, he saw another possibility for it, namely what he calls flute boxing, which means that he combines the art of beatboxing with playing the flute. And strange as it may sound, it actually works. So let's see how it's done.
When Nathan Lee plays, it first sounds like classical flute, but not for long. He calls his mix of melodic tones and beatbox rhythms flute boxing. It's something very few musicians have mastered.
I've seen one of them, but not like he's doing beatboxing, and it's crazy, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Beatbox, using your mouth to imitate sounds and instruments, is as much a part of London's underground culture as street art. But Nathan Lee developed his unusual flute technique entirely on his own.
When I do maybe a normal riff, it would be, you know. And then the next bit, I abbreviate with the beatbox, so it's like... So you get the difference.
For 2 decades now, Nathan Lee has been the pioneer of the flutebox scene. He and his band, The Clinic, perform regularly and are now working on their second album. Nathan Lee used to be a construction worker. His music career began when he was 20 and a friend gave him a flute.
It was an accident. I never wanted to play the flute, but I picked it up and then I thought, oh, this is amazing. It's just such a, you know, and it's a beautiful thing. Instruments, it's a nice thing to touch. It's a nice thing to learn about, very tactile. And the instrument's just a nice, it was a nice sort of conduit for my creativity.
Nathan Lee's way of playing fascinates people, whether on the street, at home in London, or on the internet. Videos of his performances have been seen millions of times. But the 40-year-old musician says he doesn't really care too much what others think about his music.
Whether it's for public consumption or not, it's just it's a meditation. It's something I like to do. It's something I get joy, get pleasure out of, you know.
Nathan Lee says he will never stop playing the flute, whether at home or on stage with other musicians.
And lucky for us, earlier this week, Nathan Flutebox Lee joined us here in the Euromaxx studio, and here's a repeat of his performance. The Geneva Motor Show is the hotly awaited annual rendezvous for die-hard lovers of automobiles. Now, traditionally, it's where the newest trends in automotive design are unveiled, and this year, 180 exhibitors from 30 countries are showing off some 900 different new models. Well, anyone who has been following the industry will have noticed that there is a new language of design dominating the more exotic cars, and so we looked into the philosophy behind these new mean machines and what it might say about consumer dynamics.
The horsepower of the new models at the Geneva Motor Show is packed into aggressively styled exteriors. Paolo Tuminelli is a design professor in Cologne. He studies the design language of cars. He's here to get a first impression of the new models.
Most of the cars I've seen confirm that there's a trend towards aggressive front-end designs. Studies have shown that cars that have a dominant look are popular with consumers, which means they sell better.
Tuminelli has scientifically analyzed the design factors that make a car look aggressive. For example, big models can be intimidating. Narrow windows placed up high on the body recall the gun slits of a tank. V-shaped designs at the front end resemble arrowheads. Narrow headlights bring to mind the squinted eyes of a menacing glare. A lot of BMW designs are quite aggressive.
They call it the elbow effect. The lines and structures flare away from the body of the car, things like the fenders and spoilers. These designs create an overall impression of power. We see it as an athlete just getting ready to start off. He's looking ahead, focusing on what's about to happen. A BMW should always look like it's ready to tear up the road ahead.
The Mercedes GTR seems ready to do the same. Its air intakes dominate its front.
They look like the gills of a shark. Most of those slots have absolutely no function whatsoever. But they give the car a savage, animal-like appearance, like some raging wild beast. Exactly. We call that the beast of prey look. The GT is our sportiest model. And with the GTR, it's like having a racing car on city streets. I think an aggressive design is perfectly appropriate.
The same features are showing up in some of the new Audi models. Take a look at the grille on the Q8.
Of all the factors that denote aggressiveness in car design, the most important has to be a front end that looks like a big mouth. And if it's really open wide and looks dangerous and dominating, that will make the car look a lot nastier. Car buyers don't want to travel in a rolling symbol of moderation. They want to make statements. They want to buy products they can identify with.
No one knows that better than Italian design legend Giorgio Giugiaro. He drew attention in Geneva with a beast of a vehicle. Together with his son Fabrizio, he developed an electric sports car that packs 1,000 horsepower.
People select, I think, their car for their way of driving. So I can imagine who would choose this car, how crazy he is.
When a car designed for aggression drives by, pedestrians cross the street faster.
It's one way for makers of compact cars to gain their customers a little more respect on the road.
It's interesting to note that small or compact cars, popular cars, are designed to look more aggressive, while dominant cars like Rolls-Royces and Ferraris look a little more quiet and composed.
The top flight in the automotive world, brands that have always been trendsetters in the industry, haven't really stood out in Geneva. Even if there's a sleek new Rolls-Royce that lists for around €500,000.
If you've got money, you don't need to flash muscle. Maybe that's what the brand is trying to say.
Maybe luxury brands like Rolls-Royce will influence other car makers and help make our streets look just a little friendlier in the future.
And finally, 3D printing is popular in manufacturing, and now it's making its way onto the fashion scene. Designers like Iris van Herpen of the Netherlands have been experimenting for some time with this kind of technology. And last summer, Chanel displayed its first suit made with a 3D printer. Well, meanwhile, the British label Alexander McQueen is the first luxury fashion house to actually print an accessory in series. And in doing so, it employed the services of Berlin's own Void design studio.
A walk in the rain with style. An umbrella designed by British fashion label Alexander McQueen. One unusual feature is the handle. It was made with a 3D printer. It was produced by Christiana Vuceva and Christian Hartung from the Berlin design studio Void.
I think it's quite decent, considering that it's 3D printed. You don't notice that it's 3D printed. In terms of quality, it's comparable to a traditionally manufactured product, and that's really what we aim for.
It's part of the new Alexander McQueen winter collection. The British label has always been provocative and now has something of a cult following. The designer umbrella sells for €450. Making a handle for the umbrella was just one of many jobs that Void has carried out for the fashion industry. In recent years, the Bulgarian-German design duo have made quite a name for themselves with their 3D printed designs.
So they approached us with this idea of an umbrella handle, which they couldn't currently realize with their other manufacturing technologies, and which we ended up manufacturing with 3D printing and 3D scanning.
The imprint of a hand served as a template for the handle. Traditional manufacturing would have required an expensive mold, but Christiana Vuceva is working with a 3D computer model. Hundreds of tiny details had to be set before the handle could go into volume production in silver-plated brass.
I mean, it's not easy. It's most things that we do are not done yet, or the process just needs to be developed because it's a new technology which is constantly changing, constantly improving. New features are being introduced all the time.
Void began testing ways to make designer jewelry using 3D printing in 2014. In the process, they've worked with various designers. The British House of Flora label is one of them.
You can achieve shapes and forms and really complex structures that are pretty much unachievable or extremely difficult with traditional manufacturing technologies, like all these geometric shapes and interlinked elements. They pretty much exist thanks to the 3D printing technology.
This brooch by US Carolina Herrera brand is one example. It was produced using this printer and selective laser sintering. Fine layers of powder are first placed one over the other. A laser then melts the powder at the right places to produce the desired form in polyamide 12 plastic. The printing process takes several hours. The brooch then has to be removed from the rest of the powder and cleaned up. The designers are constantly testing new materials for use in their products.
We have the ambition to advance the material spectrum and are working on this permanently. A couple of things that you can look at as transparent materials, multicolor materials, or even multi-material objects, meaning that you have multiple materials in one object integrated.
Since the accessories are all produced individually, they are often used as style elements in fashion shows. Last year, Void produced an oversized belt buckle for Belgian label A.F. van der Wurst. The same year, they also printed rings that can be adapted to suit individual outfits in a collection for the Swiss label Acris. The Berlin designers say it's the future prospects of this technology that make it really exciting.
I mean, for me personally, it's definitely that we are at the beginning of this technology. and that it's going to impact all of our lives substantially in the future. And we are kind of at the forefront of what is happening and what is going to be happening in many other industries in the future.
The stylish Alexander McQueen umbrella from a 3D printer. Cutting-edge technology for a classic accessory.
And that's all for this edition of our Euromaxx Highlights. We hope you enjoyed it. And until we meet again, all the best from us here in Berlin. Tschüss und auf Wiedersehen.